when I look back to this time period that we're talking about, it seemed like even though, it wasn't a perfect era, there was still a lot of challenges. It seemed like the deficit of public trust wasn't as large as it is today. So of all the deficits we talk about, that's one that's the hardest to maybe get around, right? Because both sides don't trust one another. I mean, we were joking about who was supporting whom back in 1992. One of the reasons that I was hired to go to work for the Concord Coalition is I actually had a little bit of a bipartisan background, which is unheard of today, right? You can't,
right?
If you plant your flag, you're sworn to death. It's a
dirty word,
right? Yeah. So, what do you think? I mean, what do we do in today's society? Do we still use sort of the same model that you were using back in 1992? Do we have to adjust, or how do we handle this?
This is, I actually work with a group called Hope Not Hate in Britain to try to figure out how to get people to talk to one another. And I think it has to start on a personal level. It has to start with, people in Congress. Sometimes, it's as simple as who's your office neighbor across the hall in Rayburn? If your office neighbor is a Republican in Rayburn, just go talk to the staff in their office. Go talk to that member, even if they are a conservative Democrat or Republican and you're a liberal Democrat. There's going to be some issues that you can talk about. There's going to be at least one thing you can agree on. And sometimes you got to stop looking at the 90% and go for the 10%, and go for the 10% first and build on that. I also think, as far as educating the public about what really matters and what really goes on in Washington, there's such a level of distrust between people out like me out beyond the Beltway and people in the Beltway. I think there's got to be education at the very basic level. And one of the things that we used when I started the Concord Coalition was the penny game, where you take 100 pennies and you put them on each of the spots where you think government spending is. And now that we're in a lockdown, I think you could do really effective Zoom meetings with people from all different country or states and counties, rural and urban, and start doing those penny games on Zoom and get people to have a dialogue about, how much of our federal budget really is spent on immigration, on education, on military spending. What do we really spend our money on? And as we build back better, and as we come out of this deficit, out of the pandemic, what do we want our country to look like? And I think bringing that tool back might help people get a really visceral understanding of what we could get our country to look like.
I think the late Janet Ryan, who was our California volunteer director for many years and actually a staffer of the Concord Coalition as well, is smiling from heaven right now. That was her favorite field tool that she used, and it works particularly well with younger people. Any advice on getting onto college campuses? That's a big goal for us.
Where it works best is where you can get seniors and young people at the same table, and it's a really good way to get them to have an actual conversation. I think using Zoom, and I think talking to some of the young Democrats and the young Republicans and say, do you like fighting all the time, or would you like to actually have a discussion and have a conversation? Things in a lot of ways in the country are really messed up. Do you want them to be messed up in 20 years, or should we maybe talk to one another and try to figure it out together?